I'm genuinely tired. Not lazy, not entitled. Just exhausted from working jobs that expect the energy of a startup founder while paying like it's 2009. You're expected to be passionate, flexible, available, resilient, fast, and forever grateful for the opportunity. Meanwhile, rent, food, and basic living costs have tripled. But wages? Same as always. When did it become normal to treat survival like a privilege? This is a real story from a real Reddit user expressing their real frustration with the horrible world and economy older generations left us. It is something a lot of Gen Z are waking up to every day and questioning more and more. Why is every day such a struggle just to survive? Why do we even have to earn a living in the first place? Does human life itself not have any inherent value outside of what we earn? Well, that's certainly what delusional boomers and corporate chills would like for you to believe. The world doesn't owe you anything. Society doesn't owe you anything. What? You think you should just get free stuff? You think you're entitled to free housing, food, and healthcare just for existing? You're such a whiny, sensitive, entitled snowflake. As the millennial defense lawyer for Gen Z, I have to extend a formal apology. You see, I've deconstructed and refuted this boomer horseshit on many occasions, but I've just now realized I was approaching it from the complete wrong angle. I've always just said that if society doesn't owe you anything, you don't owe society anything either. Though it's an okay argument, it kind of plays into their hands where they bait you into fighting their bullshit premise with your own bullshit rebuttal, and in a battle of bullshit, they're always going to have an advantage given their whole generation is a bunch of professional bullshitters. So, in this video, instead of fighting their bullshit with our own bullshit, we're just going to directly cut off their endless supply of bullshit at its source. Because this idea that society doesn't owe you anything is total and utter BS. Society actually does owe you food, housing, healthcare, education, and more. You, as a human being, inherently deserve this and are entitled to it as an intrinsic right just for existing. I know, sounds crazy, right? But trust me, it only sounds crazy because we've been so far brainwashed from an entire lifetime of delusional boomer nonsense. By the end of this video, you'll realize it is actually crazy we ever thought society didn't owe us anything in the first place. You're about to see a lot of historical, philosophical, and moral reasons why we all deserve better. The most horrible thing that boomers have done to us Gen Z and millennials isn't how they totally ruined the economy and society. It's how they constantly lie to, manipulate, and gaslight us into thinking we don't deserve better. There have been bad economic times in the past, but we've always recovered because people stood up and demanded better. By constantly gaslighting us, by calling us lazy, spoiled, entitled, or whatever, they not only force us to live with the horrible economy they created, they suppress us from rising up, fighting back, and demanding meaningful change. But once we deconstruct these manipulative lies, solutions begin to emerge. But it all starts in understanding the fact that we do actually deserve better, and we have every right to fight for it. I've been reading a lot of history recently, and there's one specific era in which people had shockingly similar mentalities as Gen Z: the Renaissance era. The Renaissance was an age of incredible enlightenment, scientific, and cultural advancement. And this was largely driven by the incredibly bold intellectual thinkers of their time. Renaissance thinkers like Pico della Mirandola, Leonardo Bruni, and Erasmus believed that society existed to serve individuals, not the other way around as boomers would have you believe. They believed in food, housing, and education as an inherent human right, not something you have to earn the way animals do. Most importantly, they believe that we are more than just our jobs, that our value comes from our humanity and not our work output. Work is just something we do, not who we are. I know if you're a Gen Z watching this, it's good to know your generation isn't alone in thinking this way. Some of the absolute greatest thinkers responsible for the greatest achievements in human history thought just like you. We are going to be taking the 3 biggest, pathetic, virgin boomer lies they used to gaslight us and directly debunk them with real quotes and philosophy from gigachad Renaissance thinkers. Lie number 1, society doesn't owe you anything. Society doesn't owe you anything. The world doesn't owe you anything. Grow up and take accountability. You and I have heard this nonsense a million times over from our asshole boomer parents. It's really a sick manipulation tactic of blame shifting the terrible economic conditions they created onto a younger generation that wasn't even born when they caused these problems. By telling you to take personal responsibility, they put the onus on an 18-year-old to navigate this horrible economy. They get to ironically avoid taking any responsibility themselves for fixing the broken system they created. But the idea that society doesn't owe you anything is objectively false. Let's take a look at how Renaissance thinkers beautifully debunked this horseshit. Leonardo Bruni is the perfect Renaissance thinker to deconstruct the boomer idea that society doesn't owe you anything. One of the founding voices of civic humanism, Bruni saw society as not some sacred, top-down order, but as a man-made project designed to serve the human good. Bruni correctly points out in many of his writings that society only exists because humans created it. Society is artificial. It doesn't randomly appear in nature. We created it. It exists only because we created it specifically to protect and uplift each other. If it is not doing that, it's not a society. It's just a system of domination. Society is not a divine structure handed down. It is a tool created by people for people. Therefore, that means we are not guests in this society. We are the architects of it. And that means society has a moral responsibility to serve people's needs, including education, healthcare, and housing, and not just offer a brutal playing field of competition. He also believed that human virtue requires freedom from poverty. We can only act good and moral if our basic needs are secured. This is why he praised public investment and city services. His logic was if society wants good citizens, it has to give them the chance to become good and not perpetually trap them in misery. Society was built by humans for humans, by your ancestors as well as mine. Animals don't build societies. Humans do. And thus, society exists specifically for the purpose of serving humans. If it is not serving the best interest of its people, there's literally no point for it to exist at all. Hey guys, just wanted to say thank you guys so much for 10K subscribers. If you're new here and enjoying this, definitely consider subscribing for more epic takedowns of delusional boomer nonsense.
A lot of the things we take as normal are actually fucking insane, okay? The phrase to earn a living is batshit crazy. Do you understand how crazy?
This Gen Z Chad right here has to be a Renaissance thinker reincarnated. I recently made a video defending him and his points, and I got a bunch of comments from delusional boomers making the same rebuttal over and over that, hey, earning a living isn't crazy. The entire animal kingdom is proof you have to earn a living. Now, before we dive into what a Renaissance thinker would have to say about this, it should be noted that out of all the idiotic boomer crap I've heard in my life, this is the most ridiculous one that can easily be debunked with plain common sense. You don't necessarily need a Renaissance philosopher to refute this. If we're living by the rules of the animal kingdom now, this logic can be used to justify literally every crime from theft to murder. Hey, murder is okay. The entire animal kingdom is proof of that. Hey, stealing is okay. The entire animal kingdom is proof of that. It's kind of stupid that boomer logic is so degenerate that I find myself having to dedicate an entire segment on how Renaissance thinkers proved the bleedingly obvious fact that humans are different from animals. But here we are. Pico della Mirandola was a philosopher, child prodigy, and intellectual rock star of the Renaissance era. In Oration on the Dignity of Man, Pico argued that every human being is born with divine potential. He didn't just elevate the individual, he said that dignity isn't earned. It's inherent. You don't have to work for the right to matter. Man is the most fortunate of living things. He can degenerate into the lower forms of life or be reborn into the divine. Renaissance thinkers drew a hard line between humans and animals, as they obviously should. I mean, this should just be common sense, but delusional boomer logic has managed to convince us we're no different from animals. Pico della Mirandola made this the cornerstone of Oration on the Dignity of Man. He argued humans alone were born with free will and limitless potential, the power to choose, grow, imagine, and improve. In a direct and stark contrast to the modern-day Darwinian-minded boomers, Mirandola argued that the human capacity for rational thought and reasoning inherently separates our own worth from that of animals. If this Renaissance gigachad heard boomers spout this nonsense of even animals have to work, he would simply say, well, that's exactly why humans shouldn't live like animals. Animals follow instincts. Humans build systems. If our systems can't guarantee dignity, then the system, not the individual, has failed. We specifically built societies so that we don't have to live like beasts. If boomer logic is that we should live like beasts, anyways, first of all, they should be fully prepared to completely give up their own social security checks, as I don't know of any animal that receives social security. And second of all, what the hell was the point of building a society in the first place if we're meant to live like animals? Lie number 3. Your entire worth as a human being is determined by your job. This one is personal to me. It's been as frustrating to me as I'm sure it is to you. Everyone seems to judge you only by your job and how much money you make. Every time you strike up a conversation with someone new, the first question you always get asked after what's your name is, so, what do you do? But why? Why is it that our entire worth and existence is reduced to a job title and a number on a spreadsheet? We've all felt at some point just how unnatural this is. But is this just the way things are? Were things always this way? Well, the Renaissance era says the answer is a resounding no. Meet Michel de Montaigne, our next gigachad Renaissance thinker that will help us RKO the crap out of this delusional boomer nonsense. When I read the work, no pun intended, of Montaigne, I can't help but think he's a modern-day Gen Z guy who took a time machine back to the Renaissance era. Montaigne was a 16th century French nobleman, writer, and philosopher. He pioneered the essay as a literary form. Yeah, you know all those annoying essays you had to write in high school? You can thank this guy for that. Montaigne was the original anti-hustle culture quiet quitter. He adamantly believed and wrote about how he believed life was about living, not just grinding. He believed the purpose of life wasn't work. It was to live fully, thoughtfully, and leisurely. The greatest thing in the world is to know how to belong to oneself. He wrote in his famous book, Essays. If boomers asked him, why should you just get stuff for free? Montaigne would simply reply, why should you waste your short life in constant toil just to be productive? He argued that leisure isn't laziness. It's actually where self-knowledge and wisdom are born. And he's absolutely right about this. Let's just be honest here. Can any of us remember a time where we had an incredible life-changing epiphany in the middle of a mindless and soulless 8-hour shift? One of the biggest arguments I always see from delusional boomers is, but how will society run if no one works? But according to actual data, over half of societal jobs are not essential to keep society running anyways. And think how many potential great inventions and breakthroughs we've potentially missed due to everyone who's been intellectually stifled from having to work a soulless 9-to-5. Montaigne warned that chasing work and wealth for its own sake made people anxious, shallow, and unfree. Ambition is not a vice of little people. He saw people constantly striving, but for what? He called it out as a form of self-deception, or what Gen Z would call coping. Chasing status to fill inner emptiness. Instead of defining your worth by your output or your job, Montaigne said inner life, reading, reflecting, appreciating beauty, understanding yourself, was what gave life meaning. We are great fools. He has spent his life in idleness, and we say, I haven't done anything today. What? Have you not lived? That is not only the fundamental, but the most illustrious of your occupations. What he's saying here is something Gen Z has been saying for years. Living and enjoying life itself is a valuable use of your time. You don't need to earn your place by constantly working yourself to death every day. Conclusion. A lot of you have been pushing me to talk more about solutions in my videos rather than just purely complaining about problems. This is a bit tricky because I'm humble enough to admit I'm not a god who knows everything and knows exactly how to fix the many complicated problems we face. I personally think UBI is the answer. Some of you agree with me and a lot of you don't, and that's okay. I could be wrong as well for all I know. But whatever solution you believe in and want to fight for, it starts with first believing yourself to be worthy and deserving of a better life and future. Don't let older generations gaslight and manipulate you into believing you don't deserve better, because you absolutely do. And now, as you see, it's not just me who believes this. Some of the greatest thinkers and philosophers in history would totally agree with Gen Z if they were brought back to life today. And I hope that with this video, I was able to empower you to believe that you do deserve better and to fight for whatever solutions you believe in. We've gone over the philosophical argument for why Gen Z isn't wrong for not wanting to work, but there's a great economic argument for it as well. We go over this more in this video right here. Check it out. I'll see you there. Thanks for watching.